Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And today, before I start, let me point out to you the books here. We've got Wilderlands, which are random wilderness encounters for Sword and Caravan. If you own Sword and Caravan and you want to take it off the Silk Road and into like the deserts and the mountains and whatnot, that's got all the tables you need. It also has a section on generating family history and wealth for native characters of the Silk Road. And it has the stats for the Eastern Dragon. So check out. It's the thinnest printed book I've ever had made. It was originally just going to be a PDF, but then people wanted it in print, and so we gave it to them. Or rather, Mad Scribe Press did. Also for Mad Scribe, 101 Sarmatians, Noble Intrigues for Baptism of Fire. This book has got all kinds of stuff that vastly increases the lore of the Piast Poland setting. It adds more information about the different noble families, the territories, places, things. It's got all kinds of material on intrigue, on pastimes, on all kinds of adventure seeds that you can generate, and it has the Cult of the Saints, where it gives you the mechanics for invoking saints and the list of saints that were popular in Poland at the time. So be sure to check out 101 Sarmatians. And finally, the Old School Companion 2. That's got 26, I think, 26 or 27, I always forget. Medieval authentic adventures, all based on real history, legend, mythology, folklore, or occasionally poem or song. And they're almost all sandbox type adventures. They're very OSR, and they're very easy to use. So be sure to check that out. That's the Old School Companion 2. And finally, don't forget the Pundit Files. The current issue of the Pundit Files is, I think, is it Space Opera Locations number 2? I think that's the one we're on right now. But you can check in the link below in the description. If you expand the description, you'll see the latest 2 issues of the Pundit Files. I think that one's the latest one. The one before that was the Dungeon of Doom. So be sure to check both of those out. And everything else at the Red Room store. The Pundit Files issues are only available on PDF, only available at the Red Room store, and they only cost $3.50. Okay? So, let's get on to the topic at hand. Today, I don't know, this video might be a little bit like, I was going to say Old Man Shouts at Cloud or something, but that's not quite it. It's more like, Old Man discovers something new and nobody else cares, maybe. It might be that. But I wanted to talk about something that would probably have been more topical years ago, but that would have had a different answer years ago. And that is the question of, do we lose something from playing RPGs online, like tabletop RPGs, but playing them virtually with our friends, or with people that we know, or with gamers, or whatever, compared to doing it in person, everybody together, And I had a very strong position on this for many, many years, from the time that people started using like chat rooms or things like that to play online. And my position was mostly no. I was saying there's no way that you can have as good an experience of a virtual campaign than one where the players have to come to your house every day, okay? Or not every day, but every day that you play it, right? So this was what I thought for a very, very long time. And to some degree, I would still say, without a doubt, if you are playing through a computer screen, just like so many other things, as we found out during the time of the pandemic, doing things through the screen is not the same as actually being there, right? And I think that there's still some element of that remains true. However, I will recognize that around the time, what was it, 2020 or whatever, the technology had gotten quite a bit better, because before that I'd looked into things about like gaming online, and the technology was very rough. I think it wasn't. I mean, or maybe the bandwidth was. Like it was still clunky, right? And by the 2020s, that technology has caught up, right? Whether it's Zoom or Discord or whatever else you're using, right? Google Meet, what have you. Most people can manage to get through the technical part of it. Even people like me who are essentially technophobes. So that's one side of it, The other thing, though, is the question of, will you have the same kind of quality of experience, especially for a long-term campaign? Because I generally run long-term campaigns, right? Like, what I mean to say is, a very short campaign for me is 6 months long, like playing every couple of weeks for 6 months. That's a short campaign, a very short campaign, in fact, right? So you guys will note, I just recently reposted it on X. Bill the Elf, he has a channel. That channel is of my DCC Last Sun campaign, World of Last Sun, my setting. And that has now been going on for over 13 years. That's my longest running campaign. But then I have others that have been going on for many years as well. So it's not, because it's one thing if, okay, so you're going to do like some special one-shot or something. Fine, that's a different story, right? And there you can put up with whatever the diminished capacities of online activity would be. But can it hold up to a serious long-term campaign? And again, I would have for quite some time thought the answer would be no. However, that changed, right? Well, when the pandemic happened, at the time that we started with the pandemic started, rather, I was running 4 different campaigns, 2 a week, and as a result. And keep in mind that I was living in Uruguay, which is one of the few countries that never did a full lockdown, right? Never. It didn't do a complete lockdown. Nevertheless, there were a lot of people that were hysteric. There were a lot of other things, right? And basically, I ended up having one of those campaigns just come to an end, right? Partly it was already getting to a position where it would have ended anyways, but it ended prematurely because of that, right? And then another one that I ended up essentially having to finish also. And then I was left with 2 others, right? And those 2 persisted. One of them being the Last Sun campaign. Now, as a result of the Last Sun campaign, we had until then been meeting entirely in person. And there were sometimes up to 7 players at a time, right, in my house. But once the and this is a campaign I should point out. Over the 13 years, there have been many people who have come and gone. People who came, who played, sometimes who played for years, and then because of they're moving, they got a new job, whatever happened, right? They can't keep playing and they leave. Some of them come back, right? Right now, I have 2 of the original players, of the people who were there at the very first session of the Last Sun campaign. Which, for those of you who follow the Bill the Elf channel, one of them obviously is the guy who plays Vizzy, whose original character was Bill the Elf, but Bill the Elf is momentarily out of action, as he often is. And the other one is B-Man, okay, Jazz. B-Man was a player 13 years ago when he was, what would he have been? He would have been like 14 years old. His dad brought him, right? And now he's totally grown up and he's back playing with us. So anyways, at that time, it was all in person. Now, when COVID happened, people were worried about getting infected. Some people said, well, I could only come because there's one guy, for example, that had some health issues, right? And it was legitimate. And he said, well, I don't want to take that risk, right? I said, okay, well, what do we do? So we talked about it, and Bill the Elf's player, he volunteered that he would bring a laptop and plug it in there. And so then the person who couldn't make it would log in and play from the laptop with the rest of the group in the room. And that is also how he ended up starting to record the audios of our sessions, and that's why the Bill the Elf channel exists. Now, once that happened, we had a couple of other players who had been at different times very dedicated players, right? And that they had ended up having to leave the country or were unavailable to attend in person. And they said, well, because somebody mentioned it, and we have a chat about that where we have past alumni of The Last Sun are there. And they said, well, can we join it? And I said, well, I guess so. Yeah, sure. Why not, right? So now my DCC campaign is essentially a 50-50 campaign. Every second Sunday we meet at my place, and I have 3 or 4 guys who are sitting in the living room with me, right? And then I have, at the moment, usually 2. Sometimes it's been 3, but this time, recently, it's been 2 guys who are talking to us through Bill the Elf's laptop, right? And it works. It works pretty well. Yeah, it's good. Obviously, in this context, if those 2 guys were sitting in couches in my living room, that would probably be better, right? Because there's moments where the rest of the party talks over them, or sometimes there's connection issues, things like that, right? But it's relatively minor. It's still not so bad that I would say, no, I don't want to keep doing this. I would rather have those guys, especially because some of them I'm playing for ages and ages. I'd rather have them here than not at all, right? But at the place where I'm really getting to, though, is that I eventually started a new campaign that I decided was going to be online, right? And it was originally I had done a playtest of Invisible College when I was writing Invisible College, and I had at that moment recruited a bunch of people I knew, right? Like it was all people that I already had connection with, and they all played in a Invisible College campaign online. I think it was Google Meet. And it lasted for about 5 or 6 months, actually, right? It was intermittent playing, but it was there that I saw that actually this kind of works for me. Now, in the past, I had tried, long ago, we tried with like much more primitive online chat things that at a time when the technology was more primitive, and that wasn't good. But in between that and the other, I had also seen some of these platforms, right? Like, because I know that you have like these platforms for online gaming where you can have like the dungeon map and create 3D models and have dice rolling on the screen and all this sort of stuff, right? And all of that, to be frank, just annoys me. Okay, so I realized that when after I had looked at some of these things for a time in the past. By the fact that when I decided to do this play test, I said, hey, this actually works really well, right? I've got, it's Google meetings or whatever, so we can see each other on the screen, we interact. There is actually, for those who don't have dice accessible, there's a prompt that allows you to generate a random die roll, but nothing else, right? Nothing fancy. And instead we're looking at each other and we're talking. We're describing what our characters are doing, etc., and so on. That is very close to sitting at a table and doing that, and that worked. So then after that, I decided when Sword and Caravan was getting close to being published, I decided to run a Sword and Caravan campaign. Initially, I presented it as a play test with the possibility that it wouldn't necessarily continue. But very quickly, everybody who joined it got on board. But this time, I wasn't just doing old friends and acquaintances and whatnot. So a couple of the people from that Invisible College campaign came into the play test for Sword and Caravan. But there were still some empty seats, because there were some other people who'd done the Invisible College play test that were not really interested, they felt, in the Third Crusade, right? So which was what we were running initially in the Sword and Caravan campaign. And so there were some empty spots. And here is where I have to introduce a caveat about online play. Because I think in both those campaigns, the Sword and Caravan one and the Invisible College one, The people is the central question of whether it's a good experience or not. And I mean, that's obvious, right? That's very true in real life too. But the thing is, in real life, it is easier for you to be able to curate the people that you invite into your house. Whereas, unless what you're doing is just using online platforms to reconnect to your old high school buddies, unless it's all people you already know, if you're trying to create a new campaign that'll be played virtually, it's going to be questionable about, like, will these be the right people? And the caveat for me was that basically I'm OSR famous, which meant that when I put out this, I think I put out as a tweet and whatnot, right? Maybe I put it on MeWe also or something like that, or Facebook. I got dozens and dozens and dozens of people contacting me saying that they wanted to play in my game. And therefore I started immediately like culling and curating, right? And there were some people that I just had to look at their profile to know, no, not this person, right? And then there were other people that I had no idea. And then there were some that I knew online and that seemed good enough, more or less, right? And so I started kind of weaning that and doing a kind of tryouts, with the caveat that there could be some people that might join the campaign and just not fit in. And I made it very clear that it was, and anybody new coming in was probationary. But because I had such a wide number of people, I was able to like filter it out in such a way that really for the most part, the initial group, apart from a couple of people that had been in the Invisible College campaign and then left, and one guy who came in after, it's the basic group, so it's been really successful. But part of that success is that I got a much wider net of people to sift through, right? Because I think one of the major problems is the people who are playing online. If you don't know them, you've got to check to see that it's actually going to fit well. And I think if you're going to try to DM a game online, the crucial thing is you don't need some big flashy like virtual tabletop or anything like that. We've never used it and it works fine with us. And in fact, it's better if what you can most of the time see is the faces of the other people playing. And that's the main thing. But what you need to do is to be able to put together a group that will get along together well, right? And my Sword and Caravan group now, it's been several years that they've been playing already. They are a well-oiled machine, right? And everybody there is now friends with each other because of this campaign, and they all have a really high functioning dynamic as a party. And that overcomes almost any, like compared to that, the limitations that playing virtually instead of in person, those are very small problems. So I find myself having now changed my position. And because I hadn't really said this since, like in the more distant past, I had often downplayed and said, no, I do not believe in playing online. I never really fully corrected and explained why. I thought I should do this video. I know it's not going to be the most interesting video for a lot of you, but maybe some of you have similar thoughts. Maybe some of you disagree. And feel free to tell me what you think about what I said here, and if you have different opinions or experiences you have had, okay? And as always, please hit the like button, share the video anywhere you can share it, whether people will like it or get pissed off about it, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and check out all my products. If you expand the description of this video, you'll see links to all of my different OSR products, which I hope you will give a good look at. All right, that's everything for today. Currently smoking. This is a Maestro de Paya Rhodesian with Argento roots.